The morning of April 25th, 2023 was chilly and bright in New York City. At precisely 7:42 a.m., Harry Belafonte passed away on the 14th floor of a quiet Upper West Side building. His age was 96. Congestive heart failure, which had been slowing him down for the previous 6 years but had never silenced him, was the cause. Pamela Frank, a photographer and his wife of 15 years, was clutching his hand. On the other side of the bed, Miss Gloria, his 12-year nurse, was humming "Turn the World Around" so gently that only Harry could hear it. His heart stopped when the humming ceased. It was quiet. It was confidential. It was precisely how he intended to proceed. More than most people knew, Harry had been getting ready for this. "Death is just another stage door," he used to say. "You approach it in the same manner as you approach any stage, with your head held high and your eyes wide open, prepared to give the audience everything you have left." He contributed everything he had in the last 10 years of his life. Every interview, every talk, and every peaceful afternoon spent with a grandchild was an act of unwavering dignity, love, and memory. If you have ever listened to Harry Belafonte, you are aware of the terrible irony of his death from congestive heart failure. The heart that pounded with righteous rage when children were killed in Birmingham, the heart that marched over Selma's bridge, the heart that carried the weight of a whole people's battle, and the heart that beat in time with Miriam Makeba's songs of exile just become too weary to continue fighting. The symptoms of congestive heart failure are not severe. It doesn't make an announcement with a thunderclap or strike like lightning. It creeps, ankles swell, breathing becomes difficult on stairs, and mornings become struggles with gravity. Harry dwelt inside its increasingly tight hold for 6 years. By 2023, his heart was pumping at just 25% capacity, each beat a minor miracle, his lungs filled with fluid like unwanted visitors who wouldn't go. On some evenings, his breathing was drowned out by the oxygen machine's hiss. On many mornings, Pamela had to assist him in sitting up so he could cough up the accumulation of grief from the previous night. He never voiced any complaints, though. Never once. He would tap his chest and respond, "Still ticking," when friends inquired about his feelings. "I'm still alive." "Then let's make this one count," Harry said with a half smile in response to the doctor's warning that another hospital stay might be the last. During the last few weeks, the swelling spread to his hands, the same hands who held newborn grandkids while whispering calypso lullabies, raised microphones to millions, and gripped Martins in prayer the night before Memphis. He was unable to close those lovely, long-fingered hands as they swelled. Pamela told him that his hands were still the most beautiful in the world, as she wrapped them in warm towels and kissed each swollen knuckle. He trusted her. The heart that had held so much finally spoke up on the morning of April 25th. Like a powerful torrent approaching the sea, it only slowed rather than crashed. He was humming with Miss Gloria one moment and silent the next. The pulse in his wrist fluttered once, twice, and then became still, according to Pamela. For a short while, the oxygen machine continued to hiss as though it hadn't been informed that the music had ended. Harry Belafonte spent 96 years making the world feel his heartbeat. Angry when justice required anger, compassionate when love was the only weapon available. Ultimately, that heart performed what it had always done. It gave its all, followed by a final, soft farewell beat. A heart that wears out after bearing the hopes of generations is not tragic. All that exists is thankfulness. That heart raced for the sharecropper's child who first heard "Day-O" on a crackling radio and felt tomorrow may be brighter. It echoed from a Carnegie Hall stage, beating for each marcher who found confidence in "We shall overcome." It beat for every young artist Harry guided, every political prisoner he assisted in releasing, and every scared Harlem child who believed, "Maybe I belong here too," after seeing a black man on TV. The gradual decline that started in 2017. In the spring of 2017, the first serious warning was issued. At 90, Harry was still as sharp as ever, giving speeches, traveling to Los Angeles to coach young campaigners, or traveling to Atlanta to meet with John Lewis. He felt the room tilt one afternoon as he got up too rapidly in his flat. He collapsed upon the Persian rug, his legs giving way. Pamela discovered him there, breathing rapidly and holding his chest with one hand. He repeated, "It's nothing," but she still dialed 911. His heart was only pumping at 30% of its maximum capability, according to Mount Sinai medical professionals. Decades of high blood pressure and the sheer power of a life lived to the fullest had caused the muscle to thicken. His lungs were filled with fluid. They drained it, placed him on new meds, and sent him home with explicit orders. Calm down. Son, I marched across the Pettus Bridge with Dr. King, Harry added, grinning at the cardiologist. I have no idea how to move slowly. But at last, his body was instructing him. The flat that turned into his world. The Upper West Side flat became Harry's universe starting in 2018. On clear days, he could see all the way to the George Washington Bridge from the windows of the living room, which overlooked the Hudson. His grandchildren huddled together on the couch while he related tales of meeting Mandela or slipping money to SNCC workers in the 1960s, while friends and family arrived in a constant procession. Bernice King read him letters her father had written, and Danny Glover argued politics until they were both hoarse. He continued to write, always longhand, at a little desk near the window. He filled 8 hefty journals in the past 5 years. Pamela has assured me that they would eventually be published. On March 1, 2022, his 95th birthday, there is an entry that says, I thought 95 would feel ancient. It doesn't. My body seems to have forgotten to accompany me, yet I still feel like I'm 25. The secret is to maintain the dancing spirit even when the feet are unable to do so. Grace's daily rhythm. Miss Gloria assisted him into the riverfront leather recliner each morning, unless he was too frail. He had been using the same blue mug for 30 years when Pamela brought him coffee. He would spend hours sitting there, listening to music, a lot of Miriam Makeba, a lot of old Calypso 78s, and, oddly, Taylor Swift because his youngest granddaughter insisted that Shake It Off was actually a protest song, or watching barges pass by. Visitors were welcome in the afternoons. He never rejected anyone. Documentary crews, former movement allies, and college students writing theses were all welcomed. No sympathy was his rule. Child, I've been black in America for 96 years, he would add, fixing you with his famous eyes if you began to cry over how sick he appeared. The least of it is this cardiac issue. Pamela owned the evenings. They watched Jeopardy! He still got nearly every answer, ate early, soft foods towards the end, and spoke. We discussed everything, including the world situation, the grandchildren's college preferences, and whether or not banana leaves truly created the tastiest tamales. When he was experiencing severe leg swelling or chest agony, Pamela would play a recording of Belafonte at Carnegie Hall, and they would hear his own youthful voice fill the room. He wept occasionally, not from suffering, but from appreciation. The past year, memory, and oxygen. The oxygen machine, which hissed quietly like a devoted pet, had become a permanent presence next to his chair by the beginning of 2022. He was no longer supported by his legs. He switched between a wheelchair, a recliner, and a bed. But his mind remained razor-sharp. He was fixated by the news, the conflict in Ukraine, the battles for the right to vote, the emergence of a new wave of activists. Hope isn't something you feel, he said in response to questions about how he maintained his optimism. It's an action you take. Don't just sing pretty. He told young musicians like John Legend, Rhiannon Giddens, and Aloe Black over the phone for hours. Sing dangerously. He recorded voice recordings for every grandchild's upcoming milestones. Graduations, weddings, first children. He said, play this and know I'm clapping louder than anybody if I'm not there in body. In January 2023, he developed a cold that progressed into pneumonia. They feared losing him for 10 days. Even though he was weaker and thinner, he managed to pull through with that half smile that used to melt TV cameras. Harry responded, Doctor, I've survived Jim Crow, COINTELPRO, and 3 marriages. When the doctor remarked, Mr. Belafonte, you're a tough old bird. I'm not afraid of a little pneumonia. The last weeks. It was a mild April in 2023. The trees outside his window bloomed into pale green as spring arrived early. He ate less and slept more. His hands and ankles continued to grow. Everyone knew the maths, even when the cardiologist doubled the diuretics. Harry also did. He requested that Pamela invite the family to one final get-together. Children, grandchildren, and a few long-standing friends, filled the flat on Sunday, April 16th. Naturally, they sung, Turn the World Around, Island in the Sun, and towards the end, a shaky, lovely, Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child are the modest hits rather than the major ones. With one shaking finger, Harry conducted as he reclined in his recliner with his eyes closed and tears trickling down his cheekbones. After it was ended, he took Pamela's hand and declared, I have no complaints. Loud enough for everyone to hear. I had more days and more affection than I deserved, and I made the most of it. Don't lament me for too long. I raised you to take care of the planet, which still needs to be fixed. He departed in the morning. He got up early on April 25th. One more time, Pamela assisted him to the recliner. Everything in the room turned gold as sunlight streamed in from across the river. In order to smell the city, he requested that the window be slightly open. Harry joined Miss Gloria in humming Day-O, his voice almost audible but nonetheless perfectly pitched. When the song ended, he glanced at Pamela and said, I'm ready, darling. Let's head back home. He began to breathe more slowly. Miss Gloria held one hand while Pamela held the other. The humming ceased at 7:42. The only sound in the room was the gentle hiss of the oxygen machine, which had no one left to assist it. The Harlem youngster who taught the world to fight and sing in unison, Harry Belafonte, vanished as softly as a closing curtain. Pamela opened the windows wide later that morning. The faint sound of a street musician playing calypso on a steel drum came from 14 stories below. He heard you, baby, she whispered, grinning through tears. The music was always audible to him. 2 days later, Harry's body was burned. As per his desires, there was no public funeral. Rather, the family dispersed his ashes on a sunny May evening in 3 locations he cherished. A peaceful part of Central Park, where he had once marched for justice, the Hudson River at dusk, and the Caribbean Sea off Jamaica, where he first learnt to dream. The world lost a giant. However, if you listen on a calm night, you may still hear that voice, clear, friendly, and fearless, reminding us that the song is still ongoing. The key has just changed.